We will give one more minute just for everyone to jump in, and then we will kick it off. Good day, Carly. I know you can't reply, but just said hi. Okay, I think we have everyone in the room. My name is Rob Godwin. I'm the co-CEO of the National Retail Association. Thank you, most importantly, for coming today. You are giving your precious time to us to our first National Retail Association Roadshow. Now, when we first put this out to our members and to our non-members, this was very much to get out and meet retailers. What we had was the feedback was, given the end of the financial year and the strong headwinds that we are facing, it'd be far more beneficial in time and resource to do this online. So we listened, and here we are. So we are doing this session, which is based on planet. So around our three pillars: planet, performance, and people. We're doing the first three online, and then we will be progressing onto doing this in real life towards a few months in August and September. So first of all, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I am today on the Barong people of the Kulin Nation down in Naarm, also known as Melbourne, and I can tell you it's refreshing down here today. Now, in addition to doing so, just a couple of housekeeping items for everyone. At the moment, Cassie and Kat have everyone's mics and videos turned off. When we introduce the hosts around our three subjects today, we'll be introducing them, and their videos and mics will be coming on. If you want to participate in asking questions to any of our panelists, please feel free to jump in and put some messages on the chat feature, and the team will share those with everyone as we go through. So use the chat features. Toilets wherever you want them to be, because you're all working from home or the office. So yes, and we will be having breaks after each session. So the first one we're going to kick off with in about 10 minutes is how to get started in sustainability, and that'll be from 2:20 to 2:50. We'll have a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll go on to the future of sustainability in the circular economy, and that'll be from 2:55 to 3:25. Then have a short break again and kick off for our final session at 3:30 till 4 o'clock on marketing your sustainable credentials and greenwashing. So why are we here? Well, when we put out our retail sentiments report, we had 42% of respondents that came back to our survey said that their businesses would decline in sales this year. There's a real strong call for retailers to have the tools, to have the confidence, and to have the knowledge to get through this trying time. So it was very clear to be able to, as the leading association to retailers to provide the tools. What we're going to do today is to go through those elements, looking at areas where we can help. So as we say, we've got Planet today. We're looking at sustainability and the circular economy. Next week, hosted by Brian Walker from Retail Doctor Group, we'll be looking at performance. So looking at things like AI, which is very topical at the moment, looking at RFID, security systems, looking at cyber security, customer experience and loyalty. And we'll have some great talkers and great speakers on that session next Wednesday on the 5th of June, from Google, from Airwallex, from Checkpoint Systems, from the NBN, and a whole host of Podium and a whole host of other partners to involve that. And then on the 19th of July, we are being presented from my co-CEO, Lindsay Carroll, who's our head of legal, and she will be talking all things HR, people, and culture, looking at what's coming through on the Fair Work provisions, looking at retaining staff, looking at keeping staff, company culture, as well as that pressing element of how do you keep and how do you what is the right balance between working from home and working from the office. So that will be on the 19th of July. Now, what we also are looking at, off the back of the retail sentiments report, really that asks a real probing question where people see themselves now, see themselves in the next 12 months. One of the compelling stats that came through was 77% of businesses saw their costs exponentially rising. Now, we've seen today from the inflation figures, unfortunately, going back up slightly to 3.6%. We also saw from the RBA only a tiny fractional increase in trading, and most of our core industries from our members are declining, where in real terms, if you take into account inflation, there is some real cost of trading pressures. And I did an interview a couple of weeks ago with Inside Retail, looking at elements around is cost of living and the cost of trading the same things? Are they the same sides of the coin? And really, the way for us to get through this time period, and why we have got some great speakers today, is to really looking at tools and techniques of trying to work collectively as an industry and as a group of retailers and as government in steering ourselves through a very trying period. In the Australian this week, they had the record number of insolvencies. And whilst I don't want to paint a negative picture, this is quite a realistic picture in that it is tough. Consumer confidence is low. And with, unfortunately, inflation being quite, as I say, sticky, we're not going to really see so much consumer confidence return until we see consistent interest rate reduction. So how do we tackle this? And what came out of the retail sentiments report was those three key pillars around performance, as in how do you make the best of what you have? Customer retention, in trying to increase your order value. Also looking at that customer loyalty piece to try and keeping the cost, because the acquisition of customers both in physical stores and online is going up again significantly. So how do we navigate those changes? With HR, looking at people, as we touched on, that is really looking ahead and trying to keep staff. We are still to keep the number of staff in your businesses and try and create a future career path within retail as well. But today we're looking at Planet, and we are looking at real ways of trying to increase your sustainability and increase the whole circular economy and to strive forward in those areas. So before we crack on with that, there's a couple other points. as you had seen in the press, we announced a few weeks ago that we are seeking an amalgamation with the ARA, with the Australian Retailers Association. This has been many, many months in the making of trying to, or getting our two boards together and getting our two teams together. And I would take my hat off to Nicole Sheffield from the ARA, Tim Sharsmer, our chair at National Retail, our two boards, Paul Zahar, the CEO, and Lindsay, CEO of National Retail, in bringing this all together. So this will take about 12 months to bring together, and have to go back to the vote from the members of both associations, and looking at areas around bringing together our areas of policy, finance, legal, training, marketing, and partnerships together. So as that is done, we'll be working in collaboration on certain events. The first of which happened last week with the CEO forum held by the ARA in Sydney, which was a brilliant event. There we had Amex, Google, and Deloitte's talking at the event, and an excellent luncheon with some real topical areas around retail, and around how to get started now, which we will touch on in the next few weeks. Next weekend we are off to Singapore for the for the NRF show, the first one NRF in Singapore, normally just in New York every year, and we'll be going over there representing the National Retail Association. Paul is also talking at the conference, and with Brian Walker and the team from Retail Doctor Group, we'll be doing a study tour. If anyone wants to join us, please feel free to reach out to National Retail team, or to Brian himself or Anastasia directly, and join that study tour. And what looks like, and very excited to see the content at NRF in Singapore. It's exciting to be joining that. And also we tend to miss, I think sometimes in Australia, we tend to miss some of the obvious markets which are available to us, which is around Asia. Obviously we have New Zealand, our closest neighbours, but Asia is very much a market which is expanding. And rather than necessarily looking at America or looking overseas further afield, we are in the Asia region, and therefore I think it's great to see NRF coming over here and starting their first show, which we are looking forward to supporting. After this, we have our first joint industry event with the ARA, which is the Retail Crime Symposium. And both of our policy teams are working hard at bringing this together to tackle the unfortunate increases, as we've seen recently in Bondi and other areas around Australia in terms of retail crime. Last year, we very purposely, with the Shopping Centre Council of Australia and the SDA, did a campaign around No One Deserves to Serve, trying to respect retail staff in physical stores and online, and trying to help bring across the insights and the support to retail workers in the stores. We're taking this a step further, the National Retail and the ARA working collectively in getting the federal governments, the state governments, the police forces, big, small, and medium-sized businesses together, and all invested stakeholders together in Melbourne on the 19th of July for a roundtable to try and find solutions and to try and tackle those issues head on now to provide a safer retail environment. The safer retail environment, obviously, the better for our staff, the better for the general public, but also, as we said last year, no one deserves to serve. Today, the National Retail Association launched an End Knife Violence campaign with the Queensland Police Force. And it's is a very positive step forward in working directly with the Queensland government and the Queensland Police Force, really tackling this and getting out, helping retailers, helping them with their education, but also provide literature to make our retail environments a far, far safer and secure environments for everyone. What else do we have? I think that's enough for me talking, really. What we're doing now is we'll be introducing our first panel. With this in mind, this is being recorded. So what we're going to do is after we've done our 3 panels, we'll be recording this and presenting the keynotes and the key points that I've discussed today and sharing them with everyone who's joined today. There'll also be some literature from our speakers and also contact details as well of all of the members that have been present here today. So if there are anything you want to follow up with any of our speakers, feel free to reach out to them after this show. So Kat and Casey will be sending out the main notes across to everyone, and then we will then send out later on this week, once we've done a bit of finessing and editing, this actual recording as well. So that way you can share this with other members of your team, your companies, etc., to share that knowledge base throughout the retail industry. Right. To kick off our first session, we have got how to get started in sustainability, and very, very lucky to be joined by some great speakers here. I will let them introduce themselves. We have got for you Alicia from PwC. We have got Ellie from Go for Zero, and we have got Ben from Carbon Halo. So, Ellie, I think if you'd like to start, you introduce yourself,
Sure.
etc.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm Ellie. I'm the founder of Go for Zero. Go for Zero is an online store. We also have 2 bricks and mortar stores, and they are all our products are super sustainable. So it's everything that you have at home, from shampoo to personal care to cleaning and so on, but then everything without the waste, but also without the chemicals. And we've been around for just over 5 years now.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Alicia.
Thanks, Rob. Hi, everyone. I'm Alicia Clark. I'm one of the sustainability partners here at PwC. I have had the pleasure of working with the retail and consumer sector for almost 19 years. I'm very passionate about the sector and passionate about my clients. I come at it from a couple of different lenses. I come at it from a strategy through to reporting as well. And I have a finance background as well as the sustainability experience. So super excited about the discussion today.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And Ben, last but not least.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Ben Daly. I was former operations executive at Tassal, Australia's largest aquaculture company. So running our national, international logistics, supply chain, manufacturing and farming. Done a lot of work with big supply chains and FMCG supply chains here in Australia. Lots of growth and reform. I have a passion for sustainability, and leaving corporate world, have founded Carbon Halo and the ERC protocol, which is being used to mass activate businesses into emission reduction programs. And we've partnered with a number of industries around the country, including tourism, caravanning, the wine sector, and partner with the Retail Association to help members get into programs and communicate, the great things that they're doing.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ben. So we are talking about how to get started in sustainability. One of the points that came out from the sentiments report was there was only 16% that were going to invest more in their sustainability journey. During that time, we also saw from the respondents how the desire to do more, but they really needed to know what to do and when to do it. So I think maybe if we start off, Alicia, with I mean, one of our first questions that came through from our respondents was look at the most kind of cost-effective strategies for retailers to implement to begin their sustainability journey in light of those kind of current economic challenges. I mean, from your background with PwC, how do you see that point?
Thanks, Rob. Look, I think from a cost-effective perspective and thinking about the context of the retail sector, as it's probably been one of the most impacted sectors through COVID-19, and now with the cost of living pressures and consumer sentiment, I think there is a regulatory push that is coming, and it's coming quickly to really be able to provide users of your products, investors, an understanding of what your carbon footprint is and your climate risks and opportunities. So I'd look at it from two lenses. One is a compliance lens of some of it you need to do, and the best way to understand some of the most cost-effective strategies is to really understand where your major sources of carbon emissions are. And for retail, for example, a huge impact is through your energy use. And so that's thinking about things to do with lighting. It's looking at your HVAC systems and putting into place, some measures around thinking through where some of the leakage could occur if you are in large square meter footprint, and really thinking through how you optimize energy use so that you're thinking through from a perspective of how I can save money, one, and two, how I can reduce my emissions as well. So I'm just trying to think of it from the lens of, from that cost-effective piece, focusing on where your energy demand is. We've seen some real tangible benefits across retail and other, particularly manufacturing sectors as well.
Excellent. And Ben?
Yeah, it's a really interesting space. We're dealing with lots of small and medium businesses, and we're yet to come across a business that actually already is doing something. And we tend to find that the most cost-effective way to get going is just to communicate what you're already doing, because that tends to be quite a good start and a powerful start for your stakeholders, customers, employees, just to formalise a bit more some of the good work you've already done, whether that's been things you've done with already. People have done things with their lighting like LEDs, or they've done some waste reduction, or they're already doing some form of renewable energy. Just communicating those things is a really powerful start. I do agree with Alicia that then taking the next step and trying to measure what you're doing is then a next step, and you can do that quite cost effectively now. And then if you're reporting now that you're measuring and taking some action already, but also that you're planning to take some actions into the future, you don't have to do everything now. And you'll see a lot of the large corporates aren't committing to do everything now because things take time and things require investment. That's currently enough to get going. And I think it's just important to balance whether you fit into a compliance regime or you're doing it purely for a business benefit. If you're in a large supply chain now, like you're supplying a large customer, or you are a large customer or a large business, you're going to have to do a little bit more going forward with the mandatory reporting legislation. So keep an eye on that. That's going to progressively roll through the economy. And we think that if businesses make the start of just communicating what they're already doing, they're actually making some really good steps also towards the mandatory complying world. So we tend to do that, and it doesn't cost too much anymore to start communicating if you can find the right program.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I mean, Ellie, when Ben was touching upon the point of communicating, sometimes we're a little bit shy. I mean, where do you stand here when your business is a great one example how you communicate with your customers?
Yeah, I think with this question, I get really excited by it because it shows a different mindset. It shows that there's actually sustainable practices that reduce costs. And I think it's really true. It's where to start. So for example, because we're an online store, reducing your packaging, like do you really need unwrapping paper and a card and another discount? Is there a way that you can just reduce little things like that? Because that cuts your costs, and it's way more sustainable. It's also using scrap paper, LED lights, things like that you can do. So I find if you look at where you start in your business, I would really say it's first doing a bin audit to really look like what are you producing most waste of. It's a cost audit where there's a lot of money go to, because for me it's different than to, for example, a fashion brand. And then make up your plan. And then the third one is what you just touched on. It's communicate and educate your customers too. Like if you take them on a journey, for customers, it's such a big journey, sustainability. They also know it's difficult. So if you tell them where you are now and what your plan is and what you're trying to do, and even share your fails. I share all my fails too. And I reckon that even creates more engagement from my customers than all the wins that I have. So I think as long as you can communicate your vision, your plan, and that you're really in it to try to make a difference and want to become more sustainable, it will create more loyalty to your brand.
Yeah, that authentic messaging is important, where you deliver good news and bad news in equal proportion. I think you should never be scared of acknowledging where you have failed, because it shows authentic journey, really. I mean, one of the other questions we got through from our members before this was, I maybe put this to you, Ben, how can retailers effectively measure and track their impact on their sustainability initiatives? You touch upon about the element of communicating this to ensure, I suppose, a meaningful environmental benefits. I mean, from your experience from Carbon Halo, where do you see this?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the biggest challenge we find in talking to businesses when they've found the time to think about this topic is the communication challenge. The focus has been largely on how do I do carbon accounting, but carbon accounting is not great at communicating out to customers, employees, what you're actually doing. So the emphasis now moving to saying, I'm now taking some actions in, combustion, energy, and supply chain, and communicating them out is a difficult challenge. Part of it we've developed for small and medium businesses is the ability to actually just note down what they're doing and transparently communicate it. And what we find is that small businesses, we've got mum and dad businesses and all the way up to some sort of larger medium businesses, they actually like communicating every minor thing that they're doing in a really positive way. It doesn't have to be big, major reforms. Now, when you get out to the large corporates, they tend to focus on the very large reforms they're taking. But at the small and medium business level, listening to Ellie talk about things she's doing in a business, we have some small businesses communicating 20 or 30 initiatives transparently out to their customers. They're not all easily measurable, but they're all positive things that they're doing. And doing that through in a transparent way actually has been quite difficult. We've had to find some new tools to make that a little bit easier. But whether that's a link on your website, whether it's a QR code on your shopfront window or a QR code on your products now, these are new tools you can use to help your customers understand some of the initiatives that you're taking.
And I suppose to Ellie, how have you measured and tracked your impact, and how have you communicated that to your customers?
Yeah, we do a lot of, I would say almost random things. But for example, every week we take a picture of our waste bin, because a big part of us is to become a zero waste warehouse too. So not only what we send out, but also what we do. And it's things like that. Like we post it, for example, on socials and say like, oh, this is our bin this week. Did you know that we measured it? And it's not relevant to my customers somehow product wise, but it is really about our company and connecting their emotion to our vision almost, and things like that. It's not indeed, they're not huge things that we do, but from there we then say like, okay, the most thing that we found is plastic tape from our suppliers. So what we do from this is we have an Excel, all the orders that arrive, we list which ones are plastic ones, and we email our suppliers and we say, hey, we use this paper tape, it's super strong, and we go from there. So it's just a plan. And I think for customers, it's really important, but it's also really important for your staff. It's very important that they are on that vision with you and become as passionate about what you do in your business there. So that's, for example, one that we do. But we also work with Trace. So we're a carbon positive company. So Trace, because I find carbon footprint really difficult. And that's a tool to just, like Ben said, like you can measure it, because it's extremely difficult to understand for customers. And that's not really something that we communicate a lot about, because I find it even quite hard to capture.
Yeah, excellent. And we'll come on to staff. We have a question through from one of our listeners today, but we'll come on to staff a little bit later. And Alicia, from a industry perspective, how do you see that kind of measure and track impact?
Look, I'll probably again address it from a couple of different angles. So, Ben talked to the fact that we've got the mandatory standards. So there's that transparent reporting is really, really important, and some of the KPIs that you might use to monitor your effectiveness over the period is also important. The data that you're using and you are using to educate customers on where the source of the materials are from, or the percentage of waste diverted, is going to be really important to be articulating your basis of measurement. Because when you come to the mandatory reporting cycle, there's actually a requirement for you to obtain assurance over that. So in Australia at the moment, we see a lot of voluntary assurance particularly across the retail and consumer sector. But this is going to become mandatory. And so what that means is really making sure that you've got that evidence base that sits underneath the numbers, and that you are monitoring and actioning things throughout the cycle, as opposed to looking at something on an annual basis, will really help you do two things. One, it'll help you communicate more accurate information, but two, help you actually make change throughout. And I think that's back to the piece of making sure that you are looking at things regularly, because the only way to have a look at, is my energy consumption on a like-for-like basis, does that make sense in each of the different locations I'm operating in? Or where does a store look like it's a bit of an outlier? Should I be looking at certain things there to put some energy reduction mechanisms in place? It's really using that as an operational lever as well.
Excellent points. I think, as you noted about the mandatory reporting in the EU, that's a lot more comprehensive across varying different sizes of businesses, and we are slowly and quite importantly seeing that being incorporated into corporate reporting in Australia, and that will disseminate down into medium and then smaller scale businesses as we go forward. Looking on into a next question that came through, and from everyone here, maybe we'll start with you, Ellie, and this one is, from your experience, what are those kind of common barriers that we see retailers facing to try and integrate those sustainable practices? And how do you basically overcome those obstacles to make, as Alicia was saying, where we can actually record and make change?
You say Ellie?
Yeah, that's for you.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know the first start. I'll take this. I would probably say the main barriers would be, first of all, the cost. And that's where I thought it was so important that we talk about cost-efficient strategies to reduce your waste, because it is a real mindset. There's a lot of things that you can do that do cost a lot of money, but if you can start with the things that actually save you money, it gets you on a roll, it gets you started. The same as for people at home who want to do or want to use more sustainable products. You have to start with something really small, stick to it, see that it works, communicate it, get people excited, and then you're on a roll. So I would say the cost one would probably be the biggest barrier. So I would say they start with where you create the most waste. So what would save you the most? What can you change there? And I would probably think the other one would be the people are overwhelmed by what you can do. And you highlighted it at the start too. So I would probably say if you're a bigger organization, to find maybe a group of champions who are really passionate about sustainability, because there's so many people who want to do the right thing, and maybe getting them into a role that where they look at the waste and they can help to communicate things. I think having a group of champions in your organization who can maybe just kickstart it and get other people excited too could help not to be overwhelmed and just not know where to start anymore.
Excellent. Alicia?
So I think, look, some of the research that we've done, we recently released a sentiment study, The Voice of the Consumer, which covered 20,000 consumers across 31 countries. And I think an interesting point that came out of that was that 85% of the survey respondents reported that they are experiencing firsthand the disruptive impacts of climate change in their daily lives. And then a smaller, but still a considerable number of 46% say that they are buying more sustainable products as a way to reduce their personal impact on the environment. So I'm going to take a customer lens on this. In another data point of that is that they also said that they'd be willing to pay, almost 10% above average price for sustainably produced and sourced goods. And so I think this is back to also, some of what Ellie's been telling us of her whole reason why she's started that amazing business. And so the greatest impact that we've seen is around those tangible attributes of where they're talking through what production methods that emphasize that waste recycling and reduction, the packaging, a positive impact on nature and water as well. And that's really where a lot of the impact has been seen. I do know that we've got quite a vast range across the sector here, across fashion, household goods, and food retailing. And so, a lot of the things that we've talked about through today across, energy management, waste reduction, is really important and some really good first starts. I think Ellie's point on having those champions for change, particularly this ignites passion throughout any organisation, especially through the younger generations, of the impact that they can have. So, when you come to people strategy and linking sustainability and sustainable practices to people and some of the employee value proposition, that's really, really important as well.
Yeah, excellent. I think that point resonates about having champions. You can't do everything yourself, and therefore to get staff members and employees and your team engaged with you, that creates great momentum through the business. And Ben, any points on this one?
Yeah, this is a great question, because if we first look at the small and medium businesses, then we'll talk about the larger corporates. The small and medium businesses, there's over 2 million of them in Australia, right? And most of them have no idea where to start. And it's a very confusing environment when you go online and try and work this out. So the businesses that we deal with, they tend to say, what do I comply with? Because I don't understand what carbon neutral means. Net zero is a strange term to me, right? And they tend to look for a trusted advisor that they can go to get some quick advice on what do I actually start on, from a program or formalising their efforts. And that's where they tend to be leaning on their associations right now, going, tell me who I can trust here to get underway with something. For the corporates, their biggest challenge now is how do I get my suppliers engaged, which is where most of their emissions are. And most of the supply chains, we're talking the supply chains now with 6,000 members, and 4 have started something, So how do you get broad activation from suppliers into your emissions program, get that collective impact going? And that challenge is not just about knowledge, that's about change management, broad scale activation program. So, and that's really the next wave of I don't know, we'll call it programs that will come through the economy, which has really been driven by the legislation. And the corporates, Alicia's probably talking a lot with PwC. Most of the people that are doing the actual work are almost as confused as the SMEs, right? They're still panicking, their resources aren't great, they're not sure how to start. So finding a trusted advisor in this environment is really helpful in reducing those barriers, of knowledge, cost, and time about how to really get going on something that's going to benefit your business, get there quickly. Yeah.
I think it's interesting. The next session we have with the future of sustainability and circular economy, with Ryan from Seconomy and Teresa from Team Global Express and Carly from Just Share. They actually talk specifically on that supply chain. They're actually looking at in a bit more detail around, okay, you want to do something, you want your business to be sustainable, but then how do you put that up and down your supply chain as well? I've got a couple of questions from the audience, but very quickly, 3 quick bullet points from everyone. What would you share actionable steps, like what they can do in the next couple of weeks, where retailers can actually get started? What would you say? We'll start with Alicia. What couple of quick points?
Thanks, Rob. I'd probably say you need to really know what your base is. What are you working from? So really, back to one of Ellie's points, the bin audit, the energy audit, where, you know, when you think about your P&L and your costs, where are some of your biggest costs? And you can usually generally find that there's a good lever or a good leverage point to where your emissions activity is as well. I think retailers have a perfect opportunity because you really understand your supply chain and your resilience in your supply chain, like one of the best industries, because you have to order over a year in advance to make sure that you've got the stock ready to go on the ground. So you've got those relationships with the suppliers. So really working with them and just looking at where some of the low-hanging fruit is so that you can really drive some quick change and find those champions.
Ben?
So if you're a smaller or medium business, the first thing that I'd look to do is find a program you can join, because it's going to give you the direction and guidance you need on how to formalize your efforts to get maximum value, right? And they also tend to show you where to look for efficiencies and opportunities. And the right program will help you connect in your data and link into supply chains as well. So I'd start there, and that'll also put in place for you sort of the need to start measuring and collecting the right information to do that well. And you probably discover you're already doing 5 or 6 things already, which you can start communicating, which will make you feel good off the bat. For the corporates, what we're tending to say to them now, because most of them are aware that legislation's coming, is if you're not doing good reporting now, you're going to have to start that and find someone that can do that for you. The other part is start thinking about your supply chain engagement now, not in 2 or 3 years' time, because that is a long-term change journey. And looking at the right procurement standard and process of implementing that through your supply chain, think of that as a change management journey, not carbon accounting. So start that soon. Yep.
And Ellie, couple of...
It's hard not to mirror what they said already, but obviously I would say the bin audit, start with something cost effective that you create a lot of waste stuff and that you can really reduce, like if it's packaging, if it's energy, things like that. And the second one, obviously, like Ben said, it's to communicate. But I would say the big thing for me is just start somewhere and you'll build momentum. And if you feel like there's a lot of resistance, I think it's really important to talk to people also about the way they think about it, because it's a part of future-proofing your business. Customers really, really care now. The younger generation really cares, and it becomes not like, do they have it? You have to have it. It becomes a new basis. So it's about changing that mindset for whoever doesn't want to do what you want to do in the company.
Excellent. Great points. Now we've got a quick question. We've got 3 minutes left to do this. When we start off with you, Ben, we've got a question from Ian. It says, do you think that the product stewardship initiative will transition to becoming a more robust legislative tool to enforce sustainable practices?
I'm not particularly aware of product stewarded initiative. I'm not actually sure what that is. I know Felicia knows what that is. I know that there's an increasing desire to get product level carbon footprints and share them through supply chains, which is quite a challenge. But I do know if it's referring to the mandatory reporting legislation, that's going to have a fundamental change to most businesses in the economy over the next 3 to 5 years in recording and sharing information on climate. Yeah, but I know, Alicia, if you know specifically what that initiative is.
Look, there's a number of different regulatory initiatives. So we've got the most recent one as well in terms of the waste seamless scheme as well. So I think there's there's a lot out there is probably the main message, I think, across Ben and the team.
Can I say, Rob? So,
Yeah.
Ian, is it correct? The product stewardship, you mean that, like, for example, with our cans, you know, that if you bring it back, you get your 10 cent. I reckon if that's what he means. So, you know, we have to be responsible for the end life of the product. I think that's what product stewardship means. If it is, then I think absolutely it does, because if you look at Containers for Change, how they've really been able to save so many resources that are so easily recyclable, like aluminium cans. I think it would be a great thing to become more legislative, because it actually makes the retailer responsible for the end life of the product, which will benefit the planet. And it's up to us retailers to really become innovative. And if there's no end of life, to see like, okay, how can we make an end of life? There's so many things we can do. And then again, that feeds then into, you can communicate it to your customers. Say like, hey, at the end of the life of this product, for example, you can send it back to us. We'll make sure it gets really recycled, and maybe you get a 10 off. So you create that loyalty again. So I think it's a great tool. If that's what Ian means with the product stewardship initiative, I think it would be amazing.
Excellent. Yeah, great question, Ian. I'd just like to thank Alicia, Ben, and Ellie. That was excellent kickoff to our planet pillar discussions today. What we're going to do now is just take a quick 4-minute break. We'll be back at 2:55. One we will be sharing is everyone's contact details after. So if any of the listeners, viewers today want to contact any of the speakers, all of their contact details will be on the pack sent out tomorrow to everyone. But on behalf of National Retail Association and from everyone listening today, thank you, Alicia, Ben, and Ellie, for your contribution. And we will take a quick pause now, and we'll come back in 4 minutes. So thank you very much. We'll see you part 2. Cheers.
Thank you.
G'day, g'day. Welcome back to our second session. I'm so excited. We have an all-star panel coming up. We're talking on our session 2 about the future of sustainability and the circular economy. When we were at Retail Fest in the Gold Coast in April, Team Global Express were the major sponsor at the show, and Teresa, who is their Chief Consumer Officer, had Pierre from Alibaba, Yaz from Seconomy, and Carly from Just Share. So we're actually recreating that, probably the best panel at the show, and we're recreating it today for everyone joining us today. So what I will do is pass across to Ryan to introduce himself, and then Teresa, and then Carly. So Ryan, do you want to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and why we're here?
Thanks, Rob. Afternoon, everyone. So I'm the CEO of Seconomy, work very closely with Yaz and have known Yaz for 6 years or so now. So I was previously at Officeworks as a retailer, heading up ESG and corporate affairs. And one of our challenges was about becoming a zero waste business. So we partnered with Yaz and the world's biggest garage sale at the time. And 18 months ago, I jumped ship and joined her at Seconomy to really help scale the business. So great to be here today.
Awesome. Great to see you, Ryan. And as a shopper and a fan of Seconomy, which is just around the corner from where I live, it is a brilliant store, brilliant concept, and I would recommend anyone in Melbourne or Brisbane, soon to be Sydney.
Soon to be Sydney, that's next on our list, absolutely.
There'll be a retail stores there to check out. And Teresa, do you have Teresa on board?
A bit of a technical glitch there, Rob, with getting the mute off, but Teresa Forthrup, Chief Consumer Officer of Team Global Express. It's so fabulous to be here. For those that don't know Team Global Express, we were formerly known as the Toll Group until approximately 2 years ago, where Allegro Funds bought the business. And since then, we've been on an incredible journey, and quite extraordinary, actually, in the sense of the transformation. But I guess just to say a couple of things, we're wholly Australian owned, which we're very proud of. But we are a logistics solutions company, and we're looking and doing things very differently. So it's great to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Teresa. It's for all transparency, I did some work with Teresa and the team at Team Global Express. They are leading the logistics environment industry today, and I can safely say the future is green.
Thank you, Rob. I agree. I agree.
And Carly from Just Share, would you like to introduce yourself to the crew?
Hi, I'm Carly from Just Shear. We're a clothing brand from South Australia. We work from our farm on the Yorke Peninsula. We produce shearing clothing, long back hoodies, singlets, clothing and printed clothing for farmers, shearers, and basically anyone in a rural area. So
it was great to see you talk at Retail Fest and bring in some of the regional rural impact into retail and e-commerce. And yeah, it was great to see you talking there.
thank you.
No worries. So I'm really excited about this because this is something which is dear to my heart. So I want to kick off. Maybe we'll start off we'll start with Teresa. How do you envisage the transition from kind of linear to circular economy impacting on the retail sector? Probably looking at the next decade. And what steps do you think retailers could take in preparing for this shift?
Yeah, I think, I guess from a logistics solutions perspective, we're seeing circular economy play a very important role, to be honest. But it really is, I think, businesses and retail businesses, I think, Rob, need to step back and think a little differently about re-commerce and reverse logistics. I think there are two parts that will open up opportunity, and one is, today is clearly we're in a, there are many industries in financial and cost pressures right now, and that's a really important lens to consider. Certainly, more circular economy solutions. But I think also remembering that shoppers have certain, desires and expectations as well. I think there's certainly a few themes that we brought up at Retail Fest, which are really pertinent to talk through. And I know Carly and certainly the team will be able to add more comment. But if you think about penetration of e-commerce today, sitting at under 18%, I think it's actually 17% if I'm right, and regional penetration is sitting at about 5%. We've got a fabulous opportunity to think very differently about accessing, potential customers in regional Australia. So with that comes the pressure of thinking through re-commerce and returns opportunities. And why do I say that's important? We know that in a recent research piece that we undertook from Team Global Express, which was really about shopper, there is, a staggering 91% of customers who receive damaged items and will avoid the retailer permanently as a result of that. So thinking through propositions where you can partner with the right partner who can help you achieve a more commercial viable option for your re-commerce and returns solutions will actually put you in a really, really good place. And we've got the best person on the panel to talk at that, because I think it's really important we understand that a lot of the circular economy propositions and partners today, certainly with Seconomy, it is about having a commercial proposition. So really facing into and partnering with the right people who can help you achieve different business models, especially under a time of cost pressure. Yeah.
No, brilliant points. And it's fascinating to read the Inside Retail report, which was produced and published yesterday with Team Global Express. And we'll be sharing that in our wrap-up pack with everyone. So
Great.
And I can't agree with you more in terms of getting that partnership right to deal with those issues, especially around returns and that last mile. Ryan, what would you like to input for this question?
Yeah, thanks, Rob, and thanks, Teresa, for that segue and shout out. I guess, kind of building on that and also taking that customer lens, we all know just that mainstreaming of sustainability or circular attitudes, really over that last 4 years or so, both provides opportunities for us as retailers. What does that mean from new products to market, new markets? But obviously, we can't do that necessarily without getting our own house in order. So I think there's probably a couple of parts to this. One is looking at how are we becoming a more circular business? And exactly to your point, Teresa, we can't, retailers or any organization isn't expected to do that alone. We're all been operating in this linear economy, and the system is set that way, take, make, waste. So to move from there to a circular solution, we do need transitionary partners. And I think, for me, having to be on both sides, obviously really see the benefit and the role that someone like Seconomy plays, where we are designed with circularity outwards, so we can move at scale and we can do that commercially, because we can only get there if we unlock commercial value, if we have the business case, and when we get it right, we can then go faster. And I think, building on the point of customer returns, I think this is such a great example where we've had solutions that have been designed, whether it's liquidators, other clearance avenues, many years ago, and it's been operating. It's absolutely time that we think differently about it. And we're really seeing such great take up from our partners now that are going, actually, we need a different model for customer returns. We don't want a cherry pick solution. We want to know exactly where it's going. We don't want it sent offshore. And so part of our model is, well, let's take all of that. Let's have the commercial solution, but let's integrate repair, refurbishment, reuse, donation, and actually all of that great value that comes out of that from the social good on the other side, not just the environmental side. So big opportunity, for sure.
That's excellent points. It's about owning really. It's owning those issues and actually seeing them through. Like my home office is decked out by Economy, and completely minor chips and grazes, which, you know, to a, shall we say, a high street retailer, they might not be able to sell, but it's still a chair, it's still a desk, it's still a computer monitor. You know, it's having that that purpose and that dedication. And Carly, from the regional rural perspective, and as a e-commerce leader yourself, what do you want to contribute?
So personally, I think that we've obviously got goods and actual products. So I think quality goods is what people will start to invest in rather than fast, cheap products. At Just Shear, we have a few core items. So we still have the same original hoodies that we released back in 2017. We change colorways. We do the custom printing as well and have people reorder. But I think that that's the biggest thing, having a quality product that we don't have a lot of returns. I couldn't give you a percentage rate, but it is quite low. Maybe 1 to every 100 orders that we send out would be a return. So having that high quality, I think, is the biggest key to being sustainable with clothing and other products as well. So yeah,
I can adhere to your products are absolutely superb. So yeah, I would think that your return rate is a lot less than 1%, which is quite rare in our industry. Brian, can I ask you a question in terms of giving examples of circular economy practices in the retail industry, and how other retailers can replicate these models to enhance sustainability?
Yeah, I think so. I'll put my previous hat on and what led us here, because obviously how much of what we're doing in this economy evolved from our partnerships within retail, Officeworks being one of those. You know, if we think about getting the house in order, one of our goals at the time was becoming a zero waste business, and we were able to recycle above 90% of the waste. When we got to that point, we were having an income stream from waste generation, so it wasn't any expense. But what it did do is unlock innovation and this culture change across the organization. And questions being asked, this furniture is going into the bin, there's got to be a better way. This is a customer return, let's get someone to fix it. And that's what ultimately led to the partnership with Economy at the time. And I think what's evolved from that, now looking on, and probably to your comment around, you've got all the products set up at home, Rob, we actually see ourselves as a service provider. So I remember having a conversation with Yaz, and I said the ideal outcome is nothing ends up here because we design it out. And Economy is actually just this repair, refurbishment, reuse partner to get it back through the retail channels, because that's the higher value. So what we actually did with Officeworks, when we said, right, we had a model in Brisbane, now let's launch in Melbourne, let's reverse engineer it. So instead of all the products being sent to Economy, we've now got a response squad that goes to store to repair, replace missing parts, and has Officeworks sell the product as a new product. They retain the value, they're getting less markdowns, better outcomes. We still take away the stuff that we can't fix at store, and it goes back to our workshop. But I think that's kind of that example of, it's very much commercial value led, but we're able to co-design, iterate, and scale something that we're now rolling out nationally as one part of a service offering that will ultimately benefit the industry. And having been at Officeworks, when we invested in Economy, it was never about the value just for Officeworks. It was about how do we play that leadership role to help transform the industry. And whether that's individuals or businesses, we've all got a role to actually help shape that. And so, in this role at Economy now, it's great to see so many businesses and individuals asking those questions and working with us on solutions.
Yeah, it's great to see you guys setting the benchmark. Well, it actually leads. It's starting the conversation. It's actually stimulating that. And Carly's from being getting the raw materials from the sheep and getting from the farms. I mean, how do you see these circular practices in your areas?
Yeah, so we recently went to an event selling our products. We had customers, one in particular, walking around in a hoodie that we had sold them back in 2017. So 7 whole years of wearing this jumper, and he's still wearing it to an event, which is, it's not just a work jumper. I think that having quality products, like I said before, it really speaks for itself, and your customers appreciate having that quality too. We do have people that are passing on their old jumpers to friends because they want new colors. But one person recently, they were like, we've got too many in our wardrobe, but I want to fit more in, and I want new colors, and I want the new feel. And
Still in good nick.
yeah, but they're like, I can't throw it in the bin.
I love it.
To throw out. So yeah, that's really key for what I'm seeing here.
Yeah.
We did some work with Trade Mutt. This is a conversation starter, their charity, and they do work where it starts a conversation around mental health. And again, you see some of their work shirts, which are 3, 4, 5 years old, and they've been through the rigors of building and farming, etc. And people people just don't want to give up on them, even though they're rough and tough.
That's great.
And Teresa, from an industry perspective, what do you see
Yeah.
that the economy practice?
Yeah. I wouldn't mind touching on a couple of the themes that both Ryan and Carly have mentioned, actually. But let me start with the shoppers. Certainly, and I would encourage as many people to download the research that we've just undertaken with Inside Retail, which is, pulsing 750 online shoppers to really understand, what is driving their delivery solutions. But I think if we get under the hood of what consumers are demanding, there are certainly generations of shoppers who are expecting sustainability as a given in the proposition. So how you work with partners from a sustainability perspective is going to be a really important part of your potential growth and loyalty. But if I was to talk at fashion a little bit, because Carly's touched on it, and then I'll touch on what Ryan mentioned as well, because I'm very passionate about some of the things that he's doing in the sense of being able to help companies, especially with bigger and bulkier items, which I think is really important. But we've got a long-standing relationship with Thread Together, and I know you know Anthony really well. And those that don't know Anthony, clothing is a basic right for humans, and he works very closely with a lot of the fashion industry to ensure that we're actually taking, fashion items and reusing them in a really meaningful way. And instead of them landing in landfill. But what we do as a logistics solution provider is work with Thread Together and the many fashion retail enterprises to actually help distribute that to more meaningful, more meaningful places through Thread Together's network, which means that, we're able to contribute in a really meaningful way in that ecosystem. And for me, that's why I kind of talk at partnerships, really important partnerships, because having the right partners in the right place helps you address in a more meaningful way sustainability that can help you. I would also say on Ryan's front, certainly where we're seeing conversations as we start to partner with some of our customers is having partners like Economy at the table to help. What would have been quite a prohibitive opportunity that is to take bigger and bulkier items into regional Australia becomes much more accessible when you've got partners like Economy. Because if there are damaged goods, getting those goods back, to your suppliers and or into your warehouses, and then the processes of insurance and all of those things start to roll out, it can be quite cost prohibitive. But where you've got a partner at the table that's trying to help you enable the refurbishment of a good that can commercially probably set you on your course a lot quicker and also reduce the impact of your bottom line, is something that we should be thinking about. Because at the end of the day, it's about growing your brand into marketplaces that you may not be tapping into. It's kind of why I mentioned the unpenetrated regional Australia is unpenetrated significantly, and your brand presences of all of the people listening here today are potentially not reaching potential growth opportunities. So it's thinking about how you bring that together in a really meaningful way, which can actually leverage the, circular economy practices, but also deliver really meaningful, sustainable outcomes for your shoppers, and your shoppers will choose your brand. Yeah, I think that's really important to consider.
I think touching on that, Teresa, we did some work which we'll publish soon with Roy Morgan, and just illustrating the underutilization of regional and rural from e-commerce and
Absolutely.
circular economy. I mean, I would say, whilst the population is less in regional and rural, the desire to have a circular or sustainable economy is even more so. They're a lot closer to the actual core of manufacturing. So therefore, we will be publishing this coming forward, and it's a great insight into that. But Carly, if I can turn to you, I mean, your business is expanding. How do you balance that kind of the balance between economic growth, but also trying to be sustainable and that circular economy? How do you balance the kind of profitability, but also trying to be resource efficient as well?
Yeah, so we've gone from just shearing, advertising to shearers and farmers to we're doing a lot of looking outside the square on who our products could be good for. So obviously having a high quality product and core products as well, there is only so many jumpers, so many singlets that our customers can buy. We've had huge growth just by expanding, changing our products a little bit. So just putting a little slant on our shearing singlets, making them into a performance singlet that's a bit lighter weight. Advertising to builders, concreters, plumbers, that's opened up a whole other little thing for us. Yeah, it's quite good to expand. And as Teresa said, with regional and rural, the people in these areas are amazing. Most of our customers are from quite rural areas, some living 300 to 500 kilometers from a supermarket, and these people are watching your brands. I've got so many friends. All my friends basically have kids in, high quality, expensive clothing, and they have the money, they have the time, they have the access to the internet, that they're sitting there scrolling at night because they're not at the pub down the road, they're at home. Yeah, it's very underestimated. Whole lot of people that no one's really focusing on, and they're very loyal people. So
it's I can't agree with you more. It's when we get out to the region. I was out in Warwick in country Queensland last weekend, and that kind of loyalty around their local businesses, but also they need to have the same distribution and services and access to be able to be sustainable.
They definitely do. And I'll just what Teresa said before about us being loyal to them as well. We went to Broken Hill Ag for a few weeks ago, and the amount of people that came up to me and said, "Thank you so much for coming out and seeing us. Like, we know how busy you are. We really appreciate you actually coming out." And I'm only 500 kilometers from there, so it's not really that much for me, but just having people actually realize you exist. We've had the guys from Team Global Express come and visit us, and what it means for us as country people, that people do care. We're kind of the forgotten people. We live out of town, not in Adelaide or Sydney, and yeah, it is. It's
never
really
forgotten, Carly. Never forgotten.
I do love that. We're just 500 kilometers away. We're not far.
I know, just 500, just a short trip. Yeah, but never forgotten.
My sons want to go 5 kilometers and 500.
Yeah.
Teresa, what do you
Yes.
what's your input into this?
Well, look, I think of I kind of think about it. I have this principle of partnering, Rob, and I know I say it constantly for those that have heard me at Retail Fest. To be successful, having the right partners that can help you achieve your growth aspirations, including, your sustainability goals, because I think, it's really important that when you step back from it, your shoppers are, to Carly's point around regional Australia, it's underpenetrated. And Carly also said they have the money to spend. They absolutely do. And there are solutions that can help you reach that customer base. By the way, we do know that retail in regional areas did grow last year, unlike the metro areas, right? So there is opportunity there. And I think if you really get under the hood of your partnerships, it's about connecting the dots of the many partners that you work with. So to be successful with your sustainability or your circular economy opportunities, it's making sure that you've got your logistics partner at the table as well with you, so that you can get the best outcome for your business at the right cost. But I think I always turn to the lens of, the consumer or the shopper. And I think, we know that loyalty is driven by having, the right propositions. Yes, and Carly's mentioned, if it gets there undamaged the first time, that is an ultimate experience. But we do know that damages do happen. So a returns and re-commerce solution that can help you meet the needs of your business priorities and your growth aspirations, having a sustainable solution with a circular economy solution will actually help you deliver to many shoppers who are selecting brands because of their sustainability, priorities and drivers. So it's really important that you consider your shopper at the end of the day. I think it's pretty loud and clear, but there is a wealth of opportunity in Australia to consider growth opportunities, and by getting to the hood of understanding your consumers as well and what drives them will help you. But it's a real true partner model, Rob. I truly believe it, and I don't think you can do it without it.
100%. I mean, Ryan, that partner model is what you do. I mean, that the fundamental partnership is between Officeworks and economy. I mean, from your lens and from your viewpoint, how do you see this evolving for the retail sector?
Yeah, look, it started there, but I think what we've seen now is just that similar to the mainstreaming attitudes of individuals go to work, and we're seeing everyone like us on the call here wanting to do things differently and questioning things. So we're seeing it right across the sector. I think what's been interesting is where we can disrupt kind of BAU and where we can solve problems. So another example would be around how we actually refurbish retail stores, whether we're closing, opening, refurbishing. We've had great examples now with David Jones to call out one, which builds on our kind of sustainable defit and refit service. We partnered with them in a pilot in Brisbane. They then, obviously business conditions changed. They decided to close Eastland, and they engaged us for the full defit and make good provider. And what we're able to do in that scenario is turn a store full of fixtures that typically go into landfill, actually reverse that. 98% of those were diverted from landfill, with 60% used. And who we connected those to were small and medium businesses, mum and dads opening up new shops, market stalls, even early learning centres and education spaces that were going, I could use this grey tub as a sensory tub. So I think this, underpinning this is obviously this creativity that's needed in circularity, because systems thinking is not linear, and we have to think that actually the possibilities for what we're dealing with when we're thinking about dormant goods are not necessarily what they were designed for. How I guess we've got to this point is probably just quickly to touch on our business model is around this product service software model. So we have circular services that are really geared around solving these challenges. They result in products coming through our channels, and then we have a software platform called Economy AI, which really pulls all that data in and helps us understand the assets, the embodied carbon, and the environmental and social outcomes. That's, when we talk about new business models that are needed for the future, to me, that's what it looks like. Logic would say, don't go and build 3 types of businesses in one, but actually what we're seeing is that's what we need to do, and that's where our customers are saying, yes, that's solving a problem.
That's an interesting point, Ryan. That data insight, how compelling is that in terms of helping the economy decide on what to do next? I mean, we are all data driven, and in our next session with Brian next week, we're looking at performance around data, AI, cyber. I mean, how much does that this is going slightly off, but this is interesting. I mean, how much is that a driving force behind economy and your repurpose, recycle?
Yeah, it's really core to how we operate. So the platform we use, it does two things. One, it helps us understand what dormant assets are coming up. So if that's in the built environment, it could be IT equipment, furniture fixtures, even commercial. It could be products coming out. And then it's about that market making. So we can integrate repair, refurbishment, recovery into those assets and saying these are at the end of their first life in 3 months or beyond. So that kind of, if you're in a retail built environment, that's where that may work. The other side then is from a product and customer returns process. Again, to my earlier point, designing out waste is the ideal, and actually that feedback loop when we pick up on patterns, and it happened when we first started this program. There's an actual manufacturer defect, or hey, here's an improvement suggestion, whether it is packaging, whether it is product part, actually designing that back into the feedback loop. And that's how we'll design it out beyond kind of just looking at data that comes back from customer returns saying this bit was faulty, this bit was faulty. It's the practical eyes on as well.
Yeah, excellent. That's really great understanding. What we're going to do is we're actually going to continue. We've got one last question for the panel here, and then we're going to go straight into our session 3. We're a bit squeezed time. One key takeaway from everyone from a question from Kat, which is, what's the one message you say to your customers on how to encourage them to be a part of the circular economy, Teresa?
Oh, look, I have to say partnering, and I love what Ryan just said. Can I say, you need to have the right partners at the table and think differently about the opportunity for your business models, right? So there's no time like now, Rob, where things are a little bit more challenging. I always think, when things are tough, you've got to think about the opportunities you have to bring the right people to the table to think differently. And I think you've said it so well, Ryan. There are many partners that can come to the table to help retail and businesses achieve the success that they have aspiration for, even in tough times. So I couldn't say it stronger. So kudos to you, Ryan. It's absolutely spot on. Yeah.
And Carly, one takeaway for our viewers today on being a part of the circular economy?
Yeah, I think the same, partnering and creating communities.
Yeah. As Jason from LSKD pushing 1% better every day, and you build that around your community.
Yeah.
Ryan, your takeaway?
I think to build on Teresa's point, no time like now. I think just get started and start small. Sometimes it doesn't have to build this great big business case or manage all of our stakeholders. Just bite off something that helps prove we can get going and unlock value. And for us, nothing is too small.
Yeah. Test it. Yeah.
Exactly.
I would just like to thank Carly, Teresa, Ryan. Absolutely fascinating. I'll be very interested, to drive business to you, Carly, from your website, which we'll put into the notes afterwards. Teresa will reach out to all the audience with communicating Team Global Express about partnerships.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rob.
Thank
you for having me.
No worries at all. And Ryan, just keep doing what you're doing and keep innovating this space, because it's changing. So what we're going to do now is go straight into our last session. But thank you very much, panelists. It's been amazing. Honoured to have you all on board. And
Thanks
we will.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob. It's been a pleasure.
Appreciate it. On to session 3, which is perfect timing, only 30 seconds in between, on marketing your sustainable credentials versus greenwashing. And in this session, we are talking to 3 legends, I would say. They are very excited to introduce Bonnie from our National Retail Association Policy Department, Kayan from the Sustainable Choice and founder of Sustainability Tracker, and also Jackson. Jackson, you might know as a world-class rugby player, but in his spare time, he's also head of growth for Mateship as well. Bonnie, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Yes, thank you for inviting me to this session. Really good to meet everyone. My name's Bonnie. I work in the policy team at the National Retail Association. We lead around 15 single-use plastic campaigns across the country and New Zealand as well. We work very closely with the industry and a lot of stewardship programs as well, so everything from clothing to batteries. And of course, we've worked with the Australian Packaging Covenant Organisation and the AIP on packaging standards and the ARL. So sustainability is something that we work very closely with. Very happy to be here today and have a chat to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. And Kyle, get it right. Kayan. Is that correct?
Hi, Kian. My name's Kian Tracy.
Kian.
I'm the founder of Sustainable Choice Group. Our tech platform, Sustainability Tracker, is our flagship product, and it's designed to aggregate the sustainability credentials of the world's brands so that shoppers and individuals and businesses know where to look if they want to review and understand the sustainability credentials or the values of the brands that they support and the products that they buy. So much in line with some of the conversations that we've been having earlier about consumers want to know what they're buying. We are trying to make it really easy for them to know exactly what they're buying.
Excellent. And Jackson, how are you?
Very well, thanks, Rob. Afternoon, everyone. I'm Jackson, Head of Growth at Mateship, and a lot of people were actually asking me, what does Mateship have to do with sustainability at all? So probably the best way to explain it is, if you think of high dense community spaces, so apartment buildings, university campuses, busy CBD office workspaces. When someone in one of those locations buys something from a particular brand, that is going to notify every person in one of those locations that, hang on a second, there's a delivery truck already going to one of those places. So why not just piggyback on that person's order and get my package delivered on the same truck? So from the brand's perspective, yes, it does get you more customers and reduce shipping costs, but from a sustainability perspective, when you've got all these people now buying from your brand, all of those products are put on a single delivery truck and sent to that one location. So from a sustainability perspective, it significantly reduces your carbon emissions and also removes delivery trucks off our roads as well.
Well, that's a cracking sales pitch, mate. That's very good. Well, we're going to start with you, Jackson, in our first question from our viewers today. What would you say are the key indicators that a sustainability claim might be considered greenwashing? How can retailers ensure their marketing efforts remain transparent and authentic?
Sure. So I've looked at probably, over 1,000 brands in the past 5 or 6 months. And if you want to be like all of the other brands, use vague language. So use the word sustainability, use the word eco-friendly, use the word green, natural, whatever it might be. Even put a photo of a panda or a big blue whale in an ocean on your website if you like. So that's, if you really want to differentiate yourself from a sustainable perspective, don't be vague. So be specific and transparent about your company and your products. So actually dive into what your products are made of, the processes that go behind the actual building of your products, and even, where the products are sourced. So that's just one thing that comes to mind.
Excellent. Yeah, good points. And I do like your illustrative kind of examples of having the blue whale and the panda, which we will ensure we don't put on our website straight after this. Bonnie, what would you have to contribute to that?
I think when you're a business, you need to be very mindful of the claims you're actually making. We've seen this with ACCC rulings as well. There are claims that people have made in regards to ocean-based plastic. We really encourage you to be careful when you're sourcing products and make sure that even though you're making a sustainability claim, you can actually verify it if you're asked to. So ocean-based plastic, be very, very mindful that if you make a claim that you cannot substantiate, particularly with the ACCC, you can receive a fine for that. Using something like a biodegradable item, they're mostly caught up in single-use plastic bans. There is a big no-no. When you talk to a lot of packaging technologists, particularly, they will provide advice to avoid using biodegradable items. Making claims on your pack such as recyclable and compostable, it has to be one or the other. So if it's compostable, it needs to be under Australian certified standards for either home compostable or industrial compostable. If you cannot verify that, please ask your supplier as well for a certification. And again, just making sure that any claim that you can make, you can either get the certification to prove that it's accurate, or if you're asked by the ACCC, that you can substantiate the claim that you're making to the consumer.
And Kian, what do you see in this area?
I think what's really important is to understand what greenwashing is, and greenwashing by definition is the gap between what is true and what is perceived to be true by an average member of your audience. So the overall perception of the messaging that you're sharing, whether it's true or not, it's about how somebody will receive it. And there's a lot of different factors that go into that. And we can talk a little bit more about that later. But really, what you've got to realize is that this isn't necessarily about trying to figure out how you can get around the laws and sort of convince people what you can and can't say. It's really about trying to be authentic and hope that people will trust you is really the key thing here.
Yeah, no, wise words, absolutely. Bonnie, if I want to start with you, our next question from our viewers is, how can retailers effectively communicate their genuine sustainable initiatives to consumers without falling into the trap of overstatement or misrepresentation? What examples have you seen from your experience of assisting businesses through the national retail?
Something that we're seeing with these plastic bins is, of course, a business will make purchasing decisions, and they may do it, based on what they've been told. But something that we really encourage them is to use trusted programs. The Australian Packaging Covenant organisation, wonderful. They've got a really great packaging reference called the Sustainable Packaging Guidelines that really guides business what kind of packaging formats they should be using. And they are, of course, wonderful platforms to promote as well. The Australasian recycling label, again, if you're getting that little logo placed on your packaging, that means it's gone through a genuine packaging assessment, it's gone through a labelling process, and you can actually verify and say, we're part of this program, we're part of behavioural change as well. Please ask for certification. We really do encourage businesses to do that, and be mindful that between the states and territories, there are different rules for what you can and can't supply. So we've got a great resource that one of our team, Ebony, produced, the single-use plastic bins table, but making sure that you're not purchasing any products or supplying them to people where they're caught up in the ban or that you could receive a fine. But a program like the Australasian Recycling Label, following the Sustainable Packaging Guidelines, and really making sure that anything that you promote, if you're using a term like eco-friendly, you're actually making sure that it is within the remit of regulations, of course, and following packaging guidelines.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think one good illustration from that is to ask questions. I mean, everyone on this call is either a member of the National Retail or friends of. We have a hotline. We have this is what we do. So feel free to always just pick up the phone, drop us an email, ask the questions, because it's better to get some insight so you don't make that misrepresentation or overstatement. And Kian, what do you see from this area?
I think what you need to ask yourself when you're communicating about sustainability is it fact or is it fluff? Things like, as Jackson and Bonnie have been saying, that vague language, eco-friendly, ocean safe, all that sort of stuff. I think if it's fluff, I highly recommend we stop doing that. But there are some organisations that believe deeply that we need to use some of this language because people understand it. They don't, but they think they do. So if you're still going to write things like friendly, you need to follow it immediately and proportionately with fact. So what exactly does that fact mean? And you need to take that person down the rabbit hole if they want to. You use QR codes, whatever it is, but if you're going to be making bold claims, you need to be able to substantiate those claims. Whether or not your customers necessarily want to go looking for those facts isn't the point here. It's about, again, as I said earlier, it's about them trusting that they exist.
Yeah, basically, put up or shut up in very simple language is
correct.
That's what you're saying, or don't say it. And Jackson, when you're illustrating mateship, as your business as head of growth, how do you communicate that in a way that is factual?
Well, we've done a lot of different researches with, some of Australia's logistics and shipping providers, where it's how much carbon emissions are emitted per kilogram on a package, for example. And with Mateship, as I mentioned before, as consumers start to group their orders together and they're on the single truck, rather than that be one truck delivering multiple packages to different locations, they're all going to that one location. So as there are more consumers that are grouping their orders together, the more the brand becomes sustainable, and the more that your consumers are able to ship and shop sustainably as well.
Yeah, excellent. I think this is a question I want to start with, Kayan. This is I find this the most fascinating question out of this grouping we have. How can retailers navigate the complexity of sustainability labeling standards? Because the ACCC guidelines are quite specific, particularly in product descriptions, claims, etc., to avoid that misrepresentation. I believe you've done some presentations on this in the past. We've only got 20 minutes left, so no, but what's your expertise in this area?
So I'm probably that one person that's read it many times. I think what's really important, let's start here. The ACCC guidance is not new and it's not news, right? So the Australian consumer law already existed. This is in line with the same law. The law is not to mislead or deceive people in order to get a sale or get an action from them. So this is a green lens over the law that already existed. And so if you have encountered those laws in the past, anything about, making sure people understand, when the telco laws changed, where you had to see the total amount that this mobile phone was going to cost you over 2 years, because saying $29.95 is misleading. So it's all these same laws around what is that perception that you're giving to somebody. I think these laws are around what is the perception of the user. So one of the best ways to get around that is to test it with your user. So essentially, you need to be taking things and showing them to people and saying, what does this mean to you? What do you perceive from this? And you need to do it in context. So for example, the difference between putting something on a shelf and putting it on a billboard is two different things. The contexts are different, the amount of time the person has to perceive it or to take action, and whether or not it's going to impact a purchase decision. So at a shelf, is a more dangerous place, because if you're going to take competition from somebody next door to you because you're misleading, then that puts you at a higher risk. So I think about having people understand what you're trying to say is critical here.
Yeah. How was that ACCC guidelines? Is it good reading?
It's actually not bad. I'll be honest. It's pretty straightforward. It's kind of I would describe it as being a little bit like kindergarten. Like, don't tell lies. If you say you're going to do something, you should do it. Things like that. It's really obvious. Don't use words that don't exist. But I think, again, I just want to reiterate the fluff thing. Like, we need to stop talking about, we're kind to the planet. Things like that doesn't actually mean anything. I think we're beyond that now.
Great points. Jackson, what do you have to say on these ACCC elements?
Yeah, from a brand perspective, it's probably not my expertise. But with the labeling and things like that on brand packages that I have received, some of the interesting things that I've come across is like recycled cardboard boxes that actually have a sticker on them saying something along the lines of, we as a brand are trying to be more sustainable. Just ignore the recycled box. We're just trying to do things for the planet. That's something that's really interesting. And another thing that I've seen is a bit of confusion around recycled packaging when being shipped to the consumer. What's actually recyclable? Is it the package or is it the product inside the actual package? So that's one case study or one example that I did come across that was a little bit confusing. So if they could really identify, what I can and what I can't recycle, that'll go a long way as well.
Yeah, and clarity of communication. And Bonnie, from the wide spectrum of retailers that we have within the national Retail Association. What have you seen within these examples of the following the ACCC guidelines?
Going back to something like the ARL, if you're going to use a program, particularly with packaging and certification, we strongly encourage you to. Now, they have to follow ACCC guidelines. Part of that, you obviously work with APCO quite closely on your packaging as well. And we do actually get a lot of visitors that reach out to our immediate about their packaging and transformation as well. Something to be mindful of is there's often a trade-off if you're making a claim like eco-friendly. So you could say, for example, that a coffee cup you're providing is plastic-free. There is no coffee cup on the market that is not plastic-free. You'll often see claims about, cups and items like that. So be really mindful that you're not making claims again that you can't substantiate or could obviously be your undoing. Something as well, there are really good programs. We saw this with Red Cycle. It wasn't the fact that consumers weren't responding to that. They're actually, quite responsive to recycling the plastic. It's just the infrastructure at the time wasn't there to meet it. So, if you're looking at making choices such as going to completely fibre-based, the trade-off there is that your carbon footprint will actually be increased. So, having a talk to actual specialists, whether it's a packaging technology, Institute of Packaging or APCO, or reaching out to our team, can sometimes mean that, a decision that you're about to make may not necessarily be the right one. So we really encourage you. We've actually got some ACCC guidance that we can send out after this session, but jumping onto one of our online sessions that our team run every week, or just reaching out to us to say, look, I've got these packaging formats, so I'm looking at making these claims. Is this the best option for me right now?
That's we will put that in the pack in the follow-up. So again, from Kian's talks and from Bonnie's Q&A questions as well, we can include that afterwards. We have one more main question and then some from the audience. If you maybe we'll start with Kian again on this one. What's the one in a highly competitive market that we're in at the moment? What is that one sustainable effort that would help, or piece of communication that will help retailers not be seen as greenwashing? So what if you had to give everyone one piece of takeaway from today, what would it be?
I would say you need to understand that the overall impression is more than just words. So if you're using green excessively, if you're using iconography, if you're putting big words and then little words that sort of hide the rest of the story, if you are printing a fake, like recycled brown onto a paper, so it's colors, it's visuals, if you're using turtles in the ocean, I say my whole advice is don't use stock imagery. Stop using stock imagery. If you didn't take the photo yourself, it's not a representation of your environmental impact. How's that?
When we provide advice to new retailers setting up websites and stuff like that, we do encourage them, don't use real photos. And it's a bit simplistic 101, but everyone can see like that kind of customer service where you got smiling faces around, the consistent monitors. That ain't the office environment. Actually put in photographs of your team, of your company, of your products, and be that authentic. Jackson, what would be your one takeaway?
I'll give you a one do and a one don't. Probably the don't side of things is just don't be vague. So on your website, as we've mentioned before, if you've got, just generic terms, green, sustainability, like Kian was talking about before, either remove them completely or keep them on and then add a fact straight after the word. So we are sustainable because of X, Y, Z. The do's, I'd say, is based on all of the reports and documentations that I've read from some of, Shopify, BigCommerce, Ozpost, Team Global Express. People are willing to shop sustainably. Like if you look at some of the stats, 93% of Gen Zs are looking to shop sustainably. 82% of millennials are looking to shop sustainably. So give them an option. And some of the options that I have seen is they are willing to pay a little extra for things like green shipping. So if I pay an extra $2 at checkout, I'm going to receive my parcel in recyclable box or, green packaging or something like that. Everyone loves to feel good, and giving them the option to feel good while being sustainable at the same time, that's a win-win for both the consumer and the brand.
Yep, as long as they're not vague. Absolutely.
Of course.
And Bonnie?
The first thing I always start a session with is please avoid purchasing anything that says biodegradable. It is a very loose claim that can get you into a lot of trouble. If you're looking at compostable in any way, it must be certified by the Australian Bioplastics Association. If you're looking at sourcing packaging, please read the Sustainable Packaging Guidelines. It is best practice. It is a Bible for packaging. And just bearing in mind that in the next couple of years, packaging will be subject to mandated standards, which means if you make a claim that you cannot substantiate or you're caught in that thin line, you can get into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, that's a very good
Can I
point.
just add to that point, Bonnie, on biodegradable and compostable? So one of the really important things here is not to use the outcome that you have no control over as an environmental claim. So the likeliness of something being composted is a factor in whether or not this is a more environmentally conscious thing to do, and also degradation if it needs to be done in a commercial facility to degrade appropriately or over a certain period of time, and you don't say that, you just say, compostable, you can actually be doing more harm. Some of these products, they're worse in landfill than if you just threw plastic in there. So really not leaning on compostability and biodegradability is a really big one, a really important one to be aware of, and maybe not something that you should be even doing if you don't understand it properly. A really good point from Bonnie.
Excellent. Last question is from Amanda. How do we support our workforce to develop these skills? What skills do they need? And will they get this from internal in-house training or through VET? So, Kian.
Well, we run courses in how to execute the ACCC's guidance in a really easy and factual way. So that's something, but there are heaps out there. There are podcasts, there are community associations, there are one-pagers all over. I think what's important is understanding who needs to know this. So it's not just, it doesn't sit with the sustainability team. This sits in the hands of the marketing team, and critically, your graphic design team needs to understand what is greenwashing and what is not greenwashing. Personally, I think the graphic designers are probably the most important, because they need to know how to use hierarchy and color to not greenwash.
Brings on to a very good point. Next week's session, when we talk about AI, is about that messaging similar to this being adopted by all. So you're not, AI doesn't sit with the CTO, etc. Same with this, where you've got to empower, like Ellie said before from Go for Zero, get started. So I think with this, with the question from Amanda in terms of the workforce and their skills, skill up everyone. Marketing's going to communicate, but everyone wants to be a part of this reframing how we look at sustainability and not to be greenwashing. Bonnie, what do you have feedback on in terms of the workforce training, in-house, VET, etc.?
I think Kian touched on this briefly, but again, jumping onto one of our online weekly sessions that Ebony Johnson runs, really wonderful, gives you a bit of an overview of what you can and can't do in terms of state and territory regulations. And if you're ordering anything in advance, so we know that this is often ordered 3 and 4 years in advance, it's good for you to get in front of that. But going back to those resources that we'll provide, just having a look at them and understanding that over the next few years, there will be mandatory regulations, you will be caught up, and where the ACCC is just starting to work on it now, they'll obviously get more things and they'll have a bit more strength in this area. So make sure that any training that your team are getting is run through professionals. The Australian Institute of Packaging actually have packaging technologists that teach you what you should and shouldn't provide. And I'll give you a bit of an example. I ordered some makeup from a company that sent me a biodegradable packaging format in the mail. Now, in a few years' time, that will inevitably be caught up, and I'm sure that they thought they're doing something sustainable. But the fact is that biodegradable packaging is actually more harmful to the environment. So it doesn't have an end-of-life cycle like we can see with other products. make sure that you're going through APCO, the ARP, like National Retail, for your training.
Excellent. And Jackson, last comment on this?
Yeah, there's so many things that I've learned in the retail and e-com space. And one of those things is there's such a good community where asking for help in these spaces. So asking, the National Retail Association for guidance, for frameworks, for training on things like sustainability is something that's really, really helpful, or something that I've experienced in this space.
Excellent. Brilliant. I would like to thank Kian, Bonnie, and Jackson for your contribution to this session. It's been absolutely, I've learned knowledge about this, and I think this really does help our viewers as well in how to be sustainable from an authentic perspective. That brings us to the end of this session. I want to do a big shout out to Kat and to Casey and to Grace, how to put this together. I'm just a pretty face that presents this, or maybe not even that, but they've done all the hard work behind the scenes. We would love your feedback on this, whether this works in terms of being online. We are going to be going out into industry in Google, NBN, and PwC in August and September. Next week, we have Brian Walker hosting the performance. You'll see my face briefly on that next week, next Wednesday, same time. And in a couple of weeks on the 19th, we will have Lindsay Carroll doing the people and HR elements to retail. Thank you very much. This has been a National Retail Association. I have been Rob Godwin. Thank you very much for attending today. And
Thanks,
if you need
Rob.
anything,
Yeah, thank you.
reach out. Thank you very much. Have a lovely afternoon, guys. See ya.